So today we are here to continue on our Masterclass series, and we are working on relationship management and how it is more than who you know. So when we look at how we handle relationships, a lot of the times they're seen as transactional. So today I want to try and give you guys some tips and tricks and hints on how to be better at building our relationship capital. As much as we think we might be great at this, we all have areas of opportunity. I know I do as well. So if you guys have not been following or you're new to this series, my name is Dr. Claire Musselman. I love to study human behavior. I'm a professor of practice at Drake University here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I teach business strategy as a main component to my daily life. And so this is my way of giving back and sharing with the community all of the things that we have learned and everything that I have learned in my decades of working with people. So with that, today, what does this mean for you? So I want you to think about this. We're about influence and how this matters to relationships. So I want you to envision, go ahead and close your eyes for me for just a second. I want you to take in a big deep breath and go ahead and exhale, because I'm sure everybody is enjoying Mercury retrograde right now, like I am. And all right, keep your eyes closed. I want you to imagine that you are at the end of your life and that you are now entering a stadium filled with people, all whom you have made a meaningful connection with over time. If this is your life, on average, we will encounter about 80,000 people that we have some type of influence over. So when you're entering this stadium, I want you to think about, what sound does that crowd make? Go ahead and open your eyes. And now I want you to think about, how are you going to leave people? So when we talk about relationship building and relationship management, it is all about how you leave people feeling after they have experienced you. And how do you continue to build upon that after those first initial interactions? So again, thinking about this, that stadium at the end of your life, what is that going to look like for you? What's it going to sound like? What's it going to feel like? And so taking today into a deep dive, we'll start out with you, of course, because this is always about you and what you can do to take away from this. Then we're going to talk about influence, quality interactions, building some authentic relationships, and adding some creativity to those, because we are all about authenticity here, and every single one of us is going to approach this differently, and that is what is so beautiful about it. So with that, I'm going to start this out with some cold hard truths. It is not people's job to remember you. It is your obligation and responsibility to make sure that they do not have a chance to forget you. Hard truth, very true. And also, this is where we think about what makes us unique. So if you've been following along with the Masterclass series, we did a little bit of this work earlier this summer, kind of talking about, who am I? And so I've asked you, who are you? A lot of times when we state who we are, we end up going with our name, our position, our company affiliation, and we don't really tell people who we are. We tell them about the roles that we play. So if you have a piece of paper handy, or you can take out your phone, I want you to stop for a second. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, and I want you to answer this prompt. Who are you? 30 seconds. Go ahead and begin. And the more you do the work, the better it'll pay off. Who are you? You can put it in a notes section, you can put it in a text message to yourself. How do you identify who you are? All right, we're going to keep going. All right, so now I want you to think about this. I want you to re-energize yourself, and I want you to think about these prompts. And again, this is always available to you after the fact, so we will make sure that you get a copy of the handout so you can answer these on your own. But I want you to think about, like, what sparks to you as I ask you these. What sets your soul on fire? How would you answer that? What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? How would you answer that? What gets you excited about life? How would you answer that? Where do you like to spend your time, your energy, and your resources when you aren't spending them with me right now? And to caveat on that, I'm honored you are spending this hour with me. Where do you focus your time, your talents, and your treasures? Those are the true gifts that you can give away to people. So what do you do with that? Where are you spending that human capital of yours? from a time and a talents and a treasures perspective? What brings you joy in life? When I say what brings you joy, where does your headspace go? Where are you from? What does that look like? And what truths are you able to own as a result? And the most important concept for today in this relationship management, how do you want to leave people? So now when we think about who are you, and we're going to come back to this whole introduction phase, I want you to think about this. When you introduce yourself, so I'm going to give you another 30 seconds. If you identified yourself through a title or a position, or maybe you said, I'm a parent, or I'm an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a friend, whatever that looks like, I want you to cut all of that out. How you identify yourself from the roles that you play, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking who you are at your core when you take all of that away. So that kind of goes back to these questions like, who are you? What does that mean when it sets your soul on fire? What are those things that get you out of bed in the morning? And where are you finding joy in your daily life? So, whatever one of those questions that really resonated for you or gave you a mental image immediately, I want you to think about this because I'm going to give you an additional 30 seconds and I want you to go back to that text and I want you to put this new response below that. Or if you're writing it out on a piece of paper, or if you are going to just text that back out to yourself, you get 30 seconds and then we're going to move on because this stuff is important. These are these first impressions of how we give people and how you see yourself. So, how are you identifying yourself? Where does that come from? 30 seconds. Go ahead. Who are you? For bonus points, you can put this in the chat. Get about 15 seconds left. And we will keep on keeping on. All right. Things to think about. So now we're going to go back to our scope of influence. So again, I want you really thinking about like, who are you? What kind of energy do you carry when you enter a room? This is a ripple effect. So if you are that center ball in this influence slide, what kind of a ripple effect happens when you enter a room? What kind of energy are you bringing to it? And that is not just saying in a physical space. This is also when you're doing coffee chats on Zoom or you're showing up to meetings via telephone or through the internet or Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, you name it. What kind of energy are you bringing when you enter one of those spheres that you can possibly influence? And so I want you to think about this. Why is influence so important? So we know at the end of our life, we're going to have 80,000 lives at least that we've made some type of influence with. We want to think about this from the relationship management standpoint. Okay, well, what kind of ripple are we giving? What kind of energy vibe is coming out? And how do we control this? So when we start to look at influence, we want to start with the why. We always want to wrap our head around the why are we focusing on this? When we think about who's had influence over us, that helps us better understand how we influence others. So immediately we go back to our childhood. Our parents have had a hard line into how our behavior has been influenced. This was then re-emphasized by teachers of what is socially acceptable, what is not, and beyond the academic scope, how our parents and our teachers showed us how to be, how we're supposed to act, what social scripting exists. One, parents are shaping our behavior. Teachers, again, are also re-emphasizing a lot of the same things that we might have learned at home through our thoughts and our behavioral patterns. Then we start looking at it in an organizational context or a work context. So then we see, how does our boss or our leader treat us? What about our colleagues? What kind of behaviors are socially accepted with our peers? What about our clients? What kind of influence is shaping our behavior as a result of being around our parents, our teachers, our work? Now, when we go to entertainment, we start to look at television. What is told? What are we told? What are we re-emphasized on a regular basis? Did you ever see the Starbucks cup that might have been sitting there? Or did you see that people were using a Mac? There's a lot of influence that goes in, especially from a purchasing power standpoint, but we're being influenced on a regular basis with what social scripts are appropriate, how we should behave, what should a woman look like, what should a man look like, how should we behave? This is coming at us all the time. Then when we start to look at social media, and if you want to joke around with Surrey later, maybe make some comments about wanting a beach vacation to Bermuda and start to see what ads pop up in any of your social media advertisements moving forward. Lots of money for the power of influence. And then, of course, we have our friends. Our friends also, our friend circles, our circling the wagons, our friend families, whatever we want to call them, they also have personal agendas that surround influence. So we have lots of factors that come at us. And so I want you to take a step back and think about, okay, how did I just identify myself? I want you to look at both areas of what you wrote. I want you to say, look at what you originally wrote, and then the one after the question prompts, like what sparked your joy, etc. Now I want you to think for a second, who's influenced that? What are the areas that have been influenced? And can you identify maybe some factors that have contributed to that? Because a lot of times we end up socially scripting into what we think people want us to do instead of what we actually want ourselves to be doing. And so I want you to think about that. You're responsible for the energy that you show up in a room with. And so what kind of influence you're going to have over other people can either bring in boundary lines or set people free. So let's talk through this a little bit. So when we're looking at building relationships and relationship management, there are about 7 things that we can think about as we look at our scope of influence. So when we're doing that, there are 7 tips that I'm going to talk about. We're going to ask people. We're going to talk about the power of why. We're going to look at birds of a feather. Guess what? They do flock together. Gifts are forgiving, the mirror effect, one of my favorite things to ever talk about. Then getting vulnerable, and how do you evoke emotion? So coming down through this, common sense is not common sense anymore. So, excuse me, when we are talking to people about influence and we're talking about how to relationship build, we want to think about, well, what would it take to influence you? And always start with yourself first. Ask yourself internally before going externally. But if we're trying to sell, or we're trying to make a connection, or we're trying to do something that's going to foster some type of meaningful connection to someone, how can I help make a difference? There's got to be something that's on someone's mind that's bringing you two together to talk at the beginning, whether it be a networking event or maybe somebody's introduced you and you're going for a coffee chat. Okay, what's going on in your world? How can I help make a difference? Is there something that I can add from a value or a resource standpoint? Is there someone I could connect you to? Do you need any advice? Do you want any perspective on this? And we just need to ask people. A lot of times we end up trying to solve people's problems for them. And sometimes that's not what they want. I have an almost 15-year-old daughter who likes to remind me that sometimes she's just here to vent. And so this is where, when we're engaging with other people, sometimes we need to ask them what they're needing from us in that moment. Do you just need a sounding board? Do you want some perspective? Do you want a solution? And ask them for what they want, because how you receive this and how you mirror back their behavioral patterns can have some substantial impact as a result. So other things to think about: what questions, frustrations, or challenges do you want me to address these? Do you not? Do you just want to voice them? Or if you're looking at this from like a sales capacity, what are the 3 most important areas that you want me to cover? Ask people what they want or what they need. They might not be able to articulate it well, but at least you can start by asking that question, so that when you're thinking about how to influence or relationship build, we now have a baseline, because common sense, again, isn't so common these days. Then we always go to why, the power of why. Why do we do things? And we say because. Because absolutely is like the magical end all be all. If you can think back to when we were kids and our mom would say, because I said so. And we'd be like, okay. Because has so much power, because it's trying to justify and rationalize. And people will agree or move forward with or have less fear of the unknown if you can justify and rationalize whatever decision that you are making. So when we give people a, hey, this is why, reason and rationalization help people comprehend whatever is on the table. Our brain works best when we hear why, then we describe the how, and then we get specific to the what, because we've already gotten to the conclusion of why we're doing something, getting from point A to point B. Now, how are we going to get there, and what are we going to do along the way? This is just the way that our human wiring has really kind of projected on us, since we have the reptilian brain, the Homo sapien brain, or the mammalian brain, and then we start getting into that frontal cortex, neocortex area. So when we think about it from that capacity, we can understand better, our influence can be better. And when we're trying to connect with people on a deeper level, getting to that why component can help make all the difference. And when we start looking at this likability, birds of a feather flock together. This is where we try to find common ground with people. And a lot of times we don't necessarily look for it in those like deeper, meaningful connections. We start very shallow, which is fine. Looking at right now, we're back in college football season, or NFL starts tomorrow, and people are all amped up on this. Finding connection points can help establish relationships in a different capacity. It starts as a nice surface level to just get to understand some of the things that you might have in common. And I like to use an example when I'm in person with people to tell me the similarities that exist between a cat and a refrigerator. And we can always find similarities that exist between a cat and a refrigerator. So if we can do that, we can find similarities that exist within other people. Having people feel that we are on their same page or have some type of shared understanding helps with likability, and it gives a connecting point to build a relationship off of. So if you're at a networking event, why are you here? What brought you here? Maybe it's something similar, maybe it's not. All right. Things to think about. But people like to be around people that with things that they have in common with. So things to think about. When we think about our gifts, okay, so time is truly the only currency. People are going to say, well, there's money, but how do you get money? You exchange it for work. Work is time. And so when we start to look at this, time truly is our only currency. So I want you to think about when you're building relationships with people, what gifts that you are able to offer if time is truly the only currency. So when we start to build relationships with people, we're trying to leave them better than we found them. So we want to be able to give them time, attention, whatever that looks like. So when we're trying to get together with someone, or we're attempting to meet with them, or trying to build off of the relationship that we have already set as a foundation, we want to think about how we craft and deliver that message. Are we looking for chunks of time that are going to maybe be said no to because it's been an hour? Or can we take 15 minutes or 5 minutes? Or, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee and let's just go chat? Think about how you're crafting that message to start building upon that relationship. What's important to this person? How can you craft your message to be able to align with what they find important? Also, you want to make people feel inspired. People want to be around people that fuel their passion and purpose and get them excited about life. People that have energy and they can bring this, and there's commitment and passion, and we're ready for this. Yes, I'm so excited to meet with you. I cannot wait to spend time with you. What words are you using to get people to feel inspired to want to engage in this dialogue with you? What does that look like? Again, you are responsible for the energy that you bring into the room. What kind of presence are you depicting in your messaging to try and meet with someone and develop this friendship or this relationship of whatever capacity? And then don't forget, your smile is your business card. People can hear your smile even if they can't see you. So think about that as well. It's a powerful, powerful message. Whatever is going on with your face, we say so much more by not saying anything at all as well. So paying attention to that. What kind of passion do you drive? What kind of purpose is resonating through? What do people hear in your tone and your flexion and whatnot? And are they going to want to spend time with you? So think about these as gifts that you can give and inspire, and a smile can change the trajectory of someone's day. So simple. Then we look at our mirror effect. Again, we are responsible for the energy that we bring into the room and the energy that we have in any interaction. And our goal is to leave people better than we found them. So you've got two options. You're going to go into an interaction with someone and it's going to be like, that was amazing. I love that person. Or you're not. And we're going to call everything else negative. So indifference is important here. You want to leave people better than you found them. Not indifferent, not meh, not it was okay, or poor. You want to leave them better than you found them. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into the room. So let's go look in the mirror here. How self-aware are you? This is where we want to know our shortcomings. The more that we are able to know about our own self-awareness is like tree roots. And the deeper that we can grow this expansion of our self-awareness, the deeper the roots grow. So no matter what is thrown our way, whatever trajectory the day takes us, we still know what our faults are. We know what our forte is. We know how we come across so that we can either manipulate it to being a better situation, or we know what our trigger points are to be aware of so that we can, again, kind of pivot to whatever comes next. This is where we need to be aware of how we project, how we present, and what people see when they're interacting with us. One of the best ways to do is to go ask someone you trust to give you feedback in a consumable manner. And also, we don't want people to pick on us. This just doesn't feel good. But asking people like, hey, how do I come across? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the creativity in that a little bit later. But there are things that we want to think about. How are we received? How are we perceived? And how can we flex between the multiple avenues that we might be a part of? So that makes it so that we have to actually understand our style. What do we dominate to? What is our dominant communication style, or how are we received? Are we someone that's going to be one of those forefront? I'm going to be in the way. I'm going to come out and I'm going to say, hi, it's nice to meet you. Like, my name is Claire. Are we going to be that extroverted person? Or are we going to default to a different type of communication style? Maybe we want people to talk to us first. We've got to figure out how to adapt. So maybe certain social settings aren't our forte, so we don't focus on those. Maybe we try different events. Or it depends what you're looking at. How are you going to build relationships? Maybe meals of food are way too long and you cannot carry on conversation for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So what if we switch it up and you do coffee or tea or do something along that? So it's more of like that half-hour window. Find what's going to work best for you and try and adapt to that nature when you're trying to relationship build. And then this is always amazing. The more vulnerable you can be with people, the more that they feel that you are authentic and that you are actually being truthful of understanding who you are from a self-awareness standpoint, and that you're comfortable in your own skin. So when I say be prepared to get raw, authenticity matters. We have all been through scenarios and situations, and we can relate to people on deeper, more meaningful human connecting points. Sometimes we don't choose to. We look at the traditional business model as very transactional. I'm telling you to blow that up and actually be a human being throughout this process. To have meaningful and purpose-driven relationships means that we're going to rethink how we do this. And we're going to do that through authentic communication, by actually giving a little bit more of ourselves to try and get that other person to understand that you are a psychologically safe space to be able to talk through things. We used to always think that we needed to be so perfect and polished and poised, but this ideal of perfectionism actually doesn't make people feel good at all. It makes people afraid to fail, to say the wrong thing, to not sit the right way, to not have the right clothes on. We do this to ourselves instead of just being who we are and really understanding this. So this is where we see that people are tired of this corporate speak and this perception. So people want to know who you are. Leave them feeling something. Leave them feel like this was a relationship or interaction that was worth having, because you are responsible for the energy that you bring in to this engagement. So when we start looking at how do we connect, this is where it's not just who you know. This is where we're starting to expand this connection piece. Being real matters to get to that human connection component. I see you. I hear you. I acknowledge you. I want you not only to feel valid in this, but I want to help validate you and what you're talking about and what your existence is. And I want you to feel something more, so that the engagement that we have just had was a meaningful connection that you want to continue to pursue or build upon. And this is where we start looking at this by what kind of influence do you have? What kind of influence? Are you going to make this person's life easier, better? What does that look like from a professional standpoint? Is that a personal standpoint? We get so into this transactional component that we really miss out on a lot of that meaningful connection. And this is the really big business benefit from COVID, where we're like, I am tired of it just being transactional. We wanted something more. And so when we're looking at how we build relationships, how are we showing up to be able to do that? And it starts with what we are willing to put out there first, to let somebody know, like, hey, here, I'm going to put the hand out. You can grab on. It's okay. And if we can evoke some emotion, again, people want to feel something, and to think about how are you leaving people. The best connecting moments make you feel something, whether they're pulling on your heartstrings or they're creating memories or helping you remember memories. Evoking emotion is a powerful tool. I'm not saying go make people cry or pull up in the ASPCA Sarah McLachlan, all the animals videos, but trying to get something that like helps people remember their purpose, their passion, their joy when we're having these conversations. Sometimes you can ask people the right questions that get them to in this blissful place of memories, and you're evoking an emotion between that. And they're going to remember that. Like when I was talking to Sarah, for example, I know, like, I felt great talking to her. Like, she really helped me think about these prior memories. And people will remember how you made them feel. They might not remember what you said. We want to leave people feeling something, and hopefully that is a good feeling. So we think about this from quality interaction. So we're gonna move on to this next segment. So we've talked about influence. We've got this 80,000 people that we're going to influence throughout our time. So now we've got to think about the quality of our interactions. And there's a couple phases to this. So first of all, we've got to remember this social game. We have been told time and time again, fake it till you make it. I'm telling you, no, stop. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. Being fake does not cultivate meaningful, purpose driven relationships that actually fine tune that meaning and how you show up and leave people. That fit, that falseness is not a good depiction of what we want to be building. So we are seeing authenticity on the rise. People want to know that it's okay, that they can be a real human being. And our attitude towards this is what spreads and can be contagious. Like we can single handedly change the trajectory of somebody's day all by how we interact with them. Like if you think about it, when you're at the end of the day, I don't know if any of you guys do this, but sometimes I think about, all right, what were the three good things that happened to me today? They're usually about interactions with other people, at least from my landscape, where I had a great interaction with a student, or I talked to somebody that made me feel. And you think about that. What were those feelings? So we want to try and be cultivating those feelings for other people. So, some key moments that I want you to think about as we continue through this. So, I want you to pick up your who am I, and I want you to reread it for a second and think about who am I, the original script, the who am I after you found your joy. And now I want you to think about this. So, when you're entering a room or you're entering, a Teams meeting or you're entering a Zoom or you're calling someone on the phone, how do you show up? What awareness is that? When you're looking at this, who am I? What is that for you? How do you show up and how are you truly leaving people feeling right now? Are you somebody that people are trying to avoid because they know they're going to get stuck in the negativity? Oh, and honestly, get some feedback on this. Let's figure out where your gaps are so that we can figure out what can be changed and you can actually make that confidence of yours contagious. Because again, we really are trying to get people to be vibrant and thrive and live their best lives, pursuing passion and purpose and making the world a better place. It all starts with us and how we show up for ourselves. So when we talk about first impressions, so we're trying to build these relationships, it is not a one and done, but we want to be conscious of what those first few interactions are like. So ideally, we would have an amazing interaction with somebody every time that we get to come into contact with them. But let's be realistic. The world happens and things come on, and we are being juggling 7 different things above our head at a given time. And we've got so much else going on. So, first impressions can be hit or miss. And this is where I ask you to offer grace to other people and also try and fine tune your own first impression. So, fun fact, decisions on people are made before we even open our mouth. So, I like to joke on this when I'm actually public speaking because by the time it's taken me to walk up the stage, people have already decided whether they're going to find me credible or not. And I'll talk through how the brain works on this. But we've got to think about how our brain processes information. Well, we are always trying to figure out that fear of the unknown and figure out how do we get ourselves into a safe space. So when we're looking at first impressions of people, it has nothing to do with those first few moments, words coming out or tone or speech. It's actually all about that energy that you are responsible for when you come into a room. So let's talk through the different layers. There are 3 different layers that our brain has to process through. So, level 1, we've got our beautiful alligator friend here today. Friend or foe, when this person is approaching you, are they your friend or your foe? That is where we're going back to tribal brain. We're at those baseline. Like, is this person going to be safe? So, your subconscious mind is doing a personal safety check. Are we okay to talk to this person? Are we not? Done. So then if you pass, we're going on to level 2. We do a confidence assessment on this person. So do we find them to be a credible winner or do we find them to be a loser? Our brain is processing this. Boom, boom, boom. Then we hit level 3. And so we're looking at, all right, is this person going to have my back? Are they going to be an ally? Are they here to help me or are they here to hurt me? Is this an ally or an enemy? Do they look like they could back you up or what's going on here? And so we're making these assessments. And guess what? This happens in 0.33 seconds. Boom, your brain is processing this information. So when we think of the fight, flight, freeze standpoint, level one is looking at that freeze. Level two is that flight. And three is that fight. So we're trying to process this information of people, and it is running rampant through our brain. So then when I say you are responsible for the energy that you carry into a room, because our subconscious minds are going at a rapid speed and they're assessing people right off the bat. So again, focus on that. What does that look like when you enter a room? Do you look like somebody that's inviting and warm and that you want people to come talk to you? Are you not? What does that look like for you? And again, we're looking at these levels of interaction more so from an understanding. Where you stand says a lot about what you see. And we're looking at that mirror approach. So when we look down at that, who am I? These are the things that are processing through other people's brains that we might not be super privy to, but we want to at least take stock in understanding how they occur so that we can build upon that from this relational standpoint. So some suggestions when you're meeting people. When you use your hands to talk, it innately makes you seem more trustworthy and safe. Ironic, but it does. So we want to think about building trust through our hands by using gestures. So as I'm sitting here talking with my hands, I always talk with my hands, but it helps emphasize points from my perspective. Also, we evaluate people by their handshake. So I swear I never have to shake people's hands until I'm coming out of a bathroom and maybe I didn't blow dry my hands all the way, or I just did a super quick wipe with the paper towel. And I always laugh about this when I go to shake somebody's hand. I'm like, I just washed my hands. But it's kind of funny. We try to make things funny during those scenarios. But what kind of a handshake do you have? Do you have one that's firm? Are you trying to death grip? Are you trying to give like a mediocre, like kind of dead fish? What are we doing? So think about that. Ask somebody for feedback sometime. Then I want you to think about how you are poised when you are standing and you're meeting somebody new. Are your legs crossed? Are they not? How do you have your arms? Are they crossed? Are they not? You want to think about the energy that you are giving to that other person. Again, you're responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. When you stand with your legs crossed or you have your arms folded, you start to cut off your energy to another person and you start to make yourself small. Our goal is not to do that. We are here with this bright dynamic energy. We are presenting ourselves. We want to be building this relationship. And so to do that, we need our shoulders down, our chest open, and we need to be able to have our energy facing towards that person with whom we are trying to build a connection with. Crossing your legs, standing there with one leg in front of the other, we don't want to do that either because that's starting to make ourselves smaller and start to cut off some of that energy. So keeping our hands at like hip width and making sure our arms are unfolded and we are actually using our hands to speak can make a huge difference. And then, of course, we always want to have some type of eye contact. Now, I know that gets wonky for people and people feel weird and they're like, I don't want to look that person in the eyes. It makes me feel weird. Okay, focus on their eye color. That's all you got to do. Focus on their eye color and it'll become second nature. But that's where people are starting to build that trust. And when you make eye contact with someone, it can be intense. So you want to think about just focusing on what color are their eyes. And then it makes that less creepy. But again, these are all tips and suggestions when you're meeting with people to try and help cultivate those basic needs before we even start building this relational connection. But it's unique to you. So take what you want and leave what you don't. And again, I want you to look back and I want you to see your who are you statement. And I want you to think about this reflection. So when you're meeting people, what does that look like? Now, when there's follow-ups to initial meetings, I want you to think about this too. The follow-up. What do you do after you've met someone new? Maybe there's an exchange of business cards, there's an exchange of LinkedIn, there's an exchange of cell phone numbers, whatever that looks like. What do you do with that information? A lot of times people do nothing. And I'm going to tell you to start doing something with it because it's going to make a huge difference in how you come across. And again, we're looking at that 80,000 person stadium at the end of your life. What does that look like? So let's start looking through that. So what is your follow-up? Maybe you send a message on LinkedIn. What does that message say? Same thing with a handwritten note. Hey, it was wonderful to meet you. How do you design that? So even if you're looking at a LinkedIn connection point, you're looking at writing a handwritten note. Maybe it's going to be an email. I want you to think about this in a couple of different ways. How are you going to design this communication? Are you trying to just say, hey, thank you, it was great meeting with you? Are you going to try and use a connection point where, hey, I know you mentioned this. I saw this book. I saw this podcast. I have some type of informational gift to you that I'm using as a connection point. You mentioned liking Brene Brown. I recently read Atlas of the Heart. Here's a link to the book, or maybe you send a copy of the book, or whatever that looks like, where we're trying to establish a little bit deeper, meaningful connection. So, what are you taking away from those interactions to help build this relational capacity? Maybe you saw a quote, maybe there's a sticker, maybe you stick it in a handwritten note that was like, hey, I thought of this. Hey, it was great to meet you the other day, saw this and thought of you. These are those elements that start to build because we're helping people feel seen, heard, acknowledged, and valued. And we're validating their existence in that interaction that we had. So now maybe that interaction was great, maybe it wasn't. How you follow up is that next level of how we start to build on this. So again, if you're going to give a LinkedIn shout out or you're going to reach out to them on LinkedIn, don't just be another person that's sliding into those LinkedIn messages, but make it different, make it unique to you. Handwritten notes are always going to be a forte. People love receiving handwritten mail, and it can be such a game changer. Or if you're going to send an email, again, what is going to make you stand out so that you don't get lost in the messages? So what sets you apart, and how do you make it authentic to you? Sometimes I send little baggies of glitter because I like being the glitter girl. That is my thing. I like adding that little pizzazz to life. And it also makes people remember me and what I stand for. And it goes back to those values. So when we look at the who are you, what does that look like for you? And how do you take that away from that initial meeting with someone to start building the relationship so it was more meaningful than just a one interaction exchange? So then when you're following up with people, let's get a little bit deeper into this. What are some things that we should think about? Okay, what did you note from that conversation? Can you take away 3 things from their life that you found important or that they mentioned to you that you can take away? Hello, use Outlook. You work smarter, not harder. If there are specific dates that somebody referenced, like, oh, next Tuesday is my birthday, take note of it. Take note of this. If anyone ever watched The Office, Michael Scott does a really good job of this. He has his old school Rolodex, and he has things in red, yellow, and green on the back of his note cards that tell him about these other people. Use technology and use your notes to help you build these meaningful connections. Ideally, in a perfect world, we would be able to retrieve this information from our brain repository at a rapid pace, and maybe you can. Other people are going to need a little bit more help, and that's okay. Use your tools and pay attention. Use that active and reflective listening. What are people telling you? Is there an anniversary? Is there some type of special day? Throw it in your calendar and set an annual reminder. Work smarter, not harder. Remember those important dates. If you want a follow up, ask somebody to come meet you for coffee, or let's do a virtual coffee chat. Make it personal and fun. Maybe this person loves craft beer and they mentioned that that's their thing. So maybe you go meet at a brewery, or you send some of a local brew over to them, whatever that looks like. Think about that. People want to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and valued. So what information you take away from those initial contacts is going to be important. Write it down as soon as you walk away from somebody, or take a note like, Claire's a mom, she's got some pets, she likes glitter. Whatever that is, just things that are going to be able to trigger that you're going to be able to build upon from a relational standpoint. And then in hopes that you have some of those mutual connection points, you can continue to evolve from there. I'm not kidding when I tell you, use your notes feature. Use your contacts feature in your phone. I've got an Apple phone, you've got your contact, put your notes in there and use your helpful hints in your calendars to remember, like, this was so-and-so's wedding day. This is their anniversary. They've got a special thing coming up. Maybe their kid has a choir concert next week. Pay attention to those moments, because the fact that you remembered is going to make a difference in that trust factor and in that elevation factor of how you're building this relationship. Those things matter. Also, pay attention to what's not being said. A lot of times people are going to talk a lot, but what they don't talk about is almost just as important. We'll get back to that in a little bit. But again, cultivate your own unique approach, whatever is going to work for you. Maybe it's writing on the back of a business card. Maybe it's putting some notes into your note feature. Maybe it's pulling up their contact and putting notes in there. Or maybe it's using Outlook or whatever calendar software you use to actually help you remember. This stuff matters. And then when those reminders pop up, do something with it. it will make all the difference. So again, when you're having these conversations, simply put, it has nothing to do with you. This is an art and a science. So we're going to get this information. We are going to formulate it into a pattern by putting it into a calendar. We're going to use it to bring this information back and pull it full circle, where maybe next Tuesday you're doing a follow-up and you're like, hey, Claire, I just wanted to check in and see how your daughter's concert was. Hope things are going well. Wanted to see if you could get together again for a coffee or blah, blah, blah. As we're building relationships, these are little pinpoints that are showing like, you were important to me. I paid attention to this. I'm trying to add value. And here are these connecting points. And we build more and we build more and we build more. Things to think about. We do tend to treat people transactionally. And this is how I'm trying to help you to not treat people transactionally. We usually do this. Hello, hello. Well, what do you do, especially at networking events? Oh, my name's Claire. I'm a professor. Oh, okay. Where? And then we get into this a little bit. Oh, cool. That's nice. All right. Well, have fun. And then we move on and then we go to the next person. We treat people very transactionally. This is what's amazing to me right now about messaging, like through LinkedIn, is where people are like, I have a solution for you and I'm going to help you sell all these leads. And it's like, I'm a professor. I actually that's not applicable to me. So how much work do we go into actually investing in the people that we want to connect with? What does that look like? We treat people in a transactional environment. So if we can break out of that and treat people like people, again, we're responsible for the energy that we bring into a room. So we should also be responsible for how we put our energy out towards other people. And so if we treat them like transactions, it's very much felt like that. And we don't want to do that. We want to make this really meaningful so that people want to engage with us. Remember that human beings are complicated. So when we go from this transactional nature of thinking about, hi, yep, this is who I am. Look at your who I am again. Okay, this is who I am. This is the role I play. This is the organization I belong to. What if we started to take it into a different context where it's more about, no, who are you? And we think about like, what is setting our soul on fire? How do we connect with this person? And what is coming next? Got to remember that our human behavior can hold multiple landscapes at once, being multifaceted, functional, dimensional, and emotional. We can hold multiple things at once. And that is why we don't like feeling like a transactional commodity. That's not what we want. Humans aren't wired that way. So I've said this, I will reiterate this, does not matter where I'm at, for what landscape, people want to be seen, heard, acknowledged, valued. And most importantly, people want to be validated in their existence, whatever that landscape might be. So when we start to take this, we look back on this, and this whole thing of importance of human connection kind of goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We might not be doing anything with the physiological needs, but when it comes to safety, we're trying to create a psychologically safe environment for people to feel like they can actually talk openly and honestly and find a place to thrive. And then we start to build up into that, like loving and belonging and esteem, and helping people try and get to those elevated places by either offering a space to just be heard, offering a space to just be seen, offering a space to be validated. And this is where we start going back to like our human functional needs. We are hardwired. I'm going to repeat this again. We are hardwired for human connection. And the biggest piece of this is trust. So it's everybody's fundamental need to belong. We go back to a tribe mentality. This is the biological nature of how we operate. But in order to get there, we've got to be able to get some trust. And we build trust through credibility and connection points that help. Oh, okay, you're like this. All right, I'm like this too. Oh, you can help me with this. Okay, I'll help you with that. We go through that. So something else to think about is how we can actually amplify somebody's neurotransmitters so that when we're having an interaction with somebody, that we're actually helping them feel good along the way. So there's 4 types of neurotransmitters that we're going to pay attention to. We look at serotonin, which is known as the mood stabilizer. So maybe somebody's not having a great day. What can we do to boost that for them? How can we amplify that? Dopamine is that reward chemical, endorphins are the painkiller, and oxytocin is the love hormone. Now, I'm not saying to run out and love everyone, but let's go through this for a second. All right, if we want to help somebody who's having a bad day and we want to help boost their serotonin, maybe we're sitting inside, maybe we move outside and we get somebody sitting in the sun, or maybe we get them to go on a walk in nature, or hey, I wanted to grab a quick coffee chat with you. Would you like to walk on a trail? Would you like to go on a hike? Would you like to do this and get somebody outside in the sun and in nature? trying to get people to think about this step in a different context to help build that relationship and leaving people better than you found them. So if you're able to move somebody either from sitting inside to sitting outside and they're able to get a little bit of sun exposure while engaging with you, different than just sitting inside on a rainy day. Just things to think about and how you can help boost some of these neurotransmitters and make people feel good along the way. Maybe you're going out to eat. Maybe this person loves chocolate. Maybe they don't. Maybe you're bringing them a chocolate. What does that look like? And when people talk about goals that they've achieved, that can also give them a boost of a self-esteem, like a self-worth value type thing, or any task they've completed throughout that day, or any self-care that they're looking forward to. Getting people to talk about this can help boost some of those dopamine neurotransmitters. And again, boosting these happy chemicals in our own brains. Then when we think about boosting endorphins, okay, again, going for walks with people. Maybe you grab coffee and go for a walk. You're getting in nature, you're getting some sun, and now we're boosting multiple neurotransmitters, making people feel good. Because again, this is all about how we leave people feeling. They're not going to remember everything you said, but they're going to remember how they felt when they were interacting with you. So again, can you get out and move? Are you guys listening to music? Can you go watch a movie? When you are building these relationships, we want people to experience great things with us. And so when you can do this and you can build upon this, this is going to make people feel good when they're in your presence. Maybe they laugh a lot. Again, trying to capitalize on those neurotransmitters, combine a couple of these. So maybe you're going to go on that walk in nature, get some vitamin D, have a coffee, have some type of food that makes them happy. Whatever that is, you're going to hit on multiple levels and people are going to leave in a good experience with you. It might not have had anything to do with what you said, but you can at least cultivate an experience around leaving people better than they found them. They're happier for doing that. But again, this is unique to you. So how are you going to try and emphasize this, branching out from like a stereotypical network modeling? Things to think about. The other one is looking at boosting oxytocin. So this is where you could pet an animal. We love sitting at coffee shops outside and somebody has a dog. Always makes people feel great. They're like, oh, I love this dog. Love seeing that. Physical touch. Maybe you're going to give a hug. Maybe you are a hugger. Maybe that person is as well. You get into that warm embrace. Some people love it. Some people hate it. So you've got to be careful and absolutely read the room on this. But this is also where we're showing that vulnerability through our conversation of saying like, I see you, you matter, by maybe offering some different points of conversation about some, maybe a struggle that we've had lately or something that's truthful that maybe not a lot of people know. But when we start to socialize and we're showing people that we care by maybe taking some notes about that choir concert on Tuesday, or understanding that maybe it's an anniversary of maybe a parent's death or something like that. We are showing people that we genuinely care about them, giving some of that vulnerability, using some of that socialization, really trying to show people how we can help them along the way. And again, if you can hit multiple of these, this is great because now you're helping rewire or you're helping push out some of these neurotransmitters and you're making people feel good when they're with you. And again, it's all about how you leave people feeling when they're with you. Again, we are hardwired. And I want to reemphasize this. It's our fundamental need to belong. So when we're trying to establish these relational components, there's a lot that can go into this. And a lot of it doesn't necessarily have to do with like the words that we say or the actions that we take. It can be about cultivating experiences with how we are interacting with other human beings. Again, we have this tribal mentality. We are wired to have those human connection points. So how do we actually do that in a way that's meaningful and trustworthy and vulnerability and whatnot? Well, we've got to quit with some of these basic traditional models of these basic social scripts like, hi, who are you? What do you do? Who do you work for? Ask people other fun things. Like, yeah, sometimes it's important to know that, but it's also really fun to get to know people at that deeper connection level. It's easier to remember people when you've gotten some type of different connecting point. So we are in our second week here teaching at Drake right now. And I spent the entire first class with most of the classes that I'm teaching talking about how you show up and how you actually like bond with people and figuring out who you are. Because at that, things can blossom and people feel like they've got a better psychologically safe space within a classroom environment because we've gotten to know each other more than just what year you were and what was your major. And I want to know more about you. Like, what's been the highlight of your day? What are your passion projects? Where are you spending your time when you're not here with me? What is your story? Where do you belong? What sparks joy? What gets you up in the morning to come hang out with me at 8 in the morning and talk HR? There's just a lot that goes into this. And so you've got to be unique in your approach to this, or you come across just like everyone else. And we go back to that transactional model. So the gap that exists in this is that not a lot of people listen. People don't take action after those initial encounters, and we fail to then bond into that human connection point. So I'm asking you to listen, take some notes, work harder, not smarter. Or sorry, work smarter, not harder. Take some action. What do those follow-up steps look like? That is what's going to carry you over into that human connection component. Listen, take action, build some human connections. Being different wakes people up. So shift those social scripts, shift into going for a walk outside versus just sitting in a coffee shop. Pull people into different avenues that they might not normally experience, because waking people up helps be memorable. And remember, it is not other people's job to remember you. It's your job not to be forgettable. So you want to think about that as we cultivate these experiences and how we show up and we're introducing ourselves and we're interacting with other people. Two of the most important leadership attributes that exist, and we're all leading our own life. We are all leaders of influence. You've got to understand human behavior. Again, we've got these multifaceted, multifunctional, multidimensional, multi-emotional humans that we are operating with and that we exist with. So how do we take that and we build some meaningful connection, whether it be with our own behavior and figuring out what's going to work and what's not? How do we build that with our teams? How do we build that with other people that we're meeting? And how do we get groups to start to move together and thrive? And a lot of that comes from how we communicate, how we're showcasing, what environment are we putting it in, and how are we leaving people feeling. Remember, I'm saying this again because it's so important. It is not people's job to remember you. It is your obligation and responsibility to make sure they cannot forget you. How do you want to leave people feeling? So get off autopilot. We don't want to be around boring people. What sets your soul on fire, and how can you be responsible for that energy that you're going to take into a room? Abandon those social scripts and change that small talk, and make sure to remember somebody's name. And if it's hard for you to remember somebody's name, try and find a way to hear it 7 times throughout an interaction. So I'm not saying that you continue to say their name, but try and focus on 7 ways that you can get that name out there, or thinking of it throughout maybe a night out or interaction of a networking event or whatnot. Introduce that person to multiple people 7 times is how it will get embedded into your memory. This stuff matters. This is courtesy of Charis Partners, the whole part of human connection. And I use this because this is what ends up making us thrive. We've got that protection from harm. We want to feel safe again with the people that we're operating with. We want to feel that belonging. We also want to feel that flexibility to be able to talk personal and professional and kind of ebb and flow. We want meaning in our lives. We want purpose. We want to feel that we are doing things that are bigger outside of ourselves and helping do this through those powers of human connection. So go say hi to people. Go start building relationships. Most smiles are started by another smile. So you get to go be that smile. And if you're at a networking event or you see somebody walking in and they don't have somewhere to sit, remember what we learned in kindergarten. Ask that person to come play in the sandbox with you. Wave them down and tell them that you've got a seat over here, because nobody ever wanted to be that person looking for a spot. Guess what? That doesn't change in adulthood either. So wave over a new friend, whatever that looks like, and start to build that camaraderie that needs to exist within. Be memorable. Things are not about what you say, they're about what you hear. And then what do you do with it afterwards? Take stock in the information that you are processing, do something with it, and then continue to follow up on it. And it's a continual cycle. Keep taking notes, keep paying attention. You don't have to remember everything off the top of your head. You just have to use the information in a smart way. Remember that people like to talk about themselves. Take notes on it. We never learned anything when we were talking. Start listening, pay attention. It matters. So again, I want you to think about this. How do you leave people? If somebody's got a great shirt on or you think they look amazing, tell them. It's going to give them that boost of self-confidence and it's going to make them happy. And then they're leaving an interaction with you better than you found them. It is so simple. Try this at the grocery store or at Target or the next time you're at Starbucks. Be the high point of somebody's day. It can make all the difference into any relationship, any types of relational transaction, and how you are going to build community and how you're going to build these relationships. And if you want to be a skeptic, that's fine. You're going to get exactly what you think. So you can approach this from two landscapes. I'm just trying to help you with this. We also tend to think, well, this is my circle. These are my connections. And I'm going to tell you, you connect your circle to my circle so we can have a bigger circle. Think abundance. This is an abundant world. So connecting people to each other and being a resource and a pivotal point for that can be really, really, really important. So start those relationship ripples. And when you're introducing people to one another, make sure you brag both people up, because they're obviously in your life for a reason and you're connecting to them for a purpose. And with that, I think this is a really big point to remind you guys, we're going to approach that hour, but why this creativity component becomes so important in business is, again, how you leave people has everything to do with your responsibility and the energy that you bring into a room. And with that, bringing in your own personal style, what's going to work for you? Again, are you more of a coffee shop, let's try and go outside? Or are you more of a let's go for a hike? Maybe we could catch a yoga class. What is it going to be that's going to be unique for you that not only sets your soul on fire and sparks joy, but it also can be that ripple effect to help build a relationship with other people along the way?